Hello everybody, and welcome back to 4FS Gaming. This is Doc, and today we are going to be having a look at the thrust engine module in Star Wars Squadrons, and why I personally think it is one of the most underused modules in the entire game. But let's not delay any further. Let's look at what makes this module stand out. First of all, what does it actually do in the first place? It increases the base speed of your ship by 30%, however this does not affect the top boost speed of the ship, and reduces the maneuverability and acceleration of the ship by 30%. Now on paper, this might not seem that good, and in fact, this is not really useful in the dogfight game mode to a large extent when compared with other engines, since you have nowhere to run off to when being chased by the enemy. Unless you're coordinating with friends or a teammate of some kind, then they can assist you, in which case, of course, it can be really useful. But that's because anything in this game is more useful with good assistance, so make of that advantage what you will. But why is speed so good, especially when you compare it to the much more high-octane maneuverability upgrades that these ships have access to? Because as good as maneuverability is at letting you win a straight-up turn-and-burn fight with any ship, that does not let you control the pace of an engagement. What do I mean by this? Well, let's look at a very quick and simple real-world example, with some War Thunder footage in the background to help illustrate my point. When they are flying around, normal aircraft here on Earth have energy that they use when they're in flight. That energy then translates into speed, which lets you control the pace of a fight. If you want to engage, you can get there first and face the enemy when they might not be ready for you. And if you find that in hindsight it wasn't a good idea to engage, you have enough energy, and therefore speed, to simply escape to fight at a better time for you. Now, speed is normally gained by exchanging altitude for energy, but in Star Wars, of course, that doesn't apply, because in space, there is no altitude. But the concept of energy fighting, also known as boom and zoom fighting, is alive and well in Squadrons, and the thrust engine lets you take advantage of this concept to run away with ridiculous scores if you can play your cards right. But how does one play their cards right when using the thrust engine? Well, let's start with the New Republic. For one thing, you don't have to have max power on engines to keep up with most TIE variants anymore. The X and A-Wing with this engine equipped actually outpace any TIE variant that isn't also running a thrust engine. I left out the B-Wing because, well, I'll explain why in a little bit. But back to the fighter and interceptors of the New Republic, they gain a noticeable advantage in boom and zoom, and the X-Wing also has the added benefit of being able to fit the boost extension auxiliary, which instantly refills your boost, making it even better at getting into, and most importantly, out of danger. Moving into power management tips for both sides, although really this applies more to the New Republic, not having to worry about having all power to engines to make escapes or move quickly throughout the combat zone, you have much more freedom to decide where your power goes. As the New Republic, I typically adhere to the standard of fully charging your shields, draining that system of power entirely, having half power to engines and max power to weapons, and then draining weapons to engines if I need to accumulate boost. But because your base speed is higher, you won't really need to worry about the boost unless you absolutely need it. But be warned, one of, if not the biggest downsides of the engine is that drifting becomes far less useful, as your drift rate plummets to almost non-existence. But thankfully it's easy to adjust to, so that's nice. As for Empire specifics, there's no real specifics you want to run with actually. You usually will just go with the standard power management of all power to engines and shunt power to weapons when you need it, so there's little in the way of any variation here. You're just a lot faster now. In fact, the TIE Interceptor with the thrust engine is faster than the Y-Wing even while the Y-Wing is boosting, and that is quite impressive. Now, target prioritization. What should you go after? Well, to be honest, there are not a lot of targets you aren't good at destroying, but you are supremely specialized when targeting a few kinds of enemies. First off, you will find a lot of success in swooping in to destroy already engaged targets, like ones that your allies are currently occupying or distracting. It is a fact, or at least amongst aircraft historians, that most aircraft never actually see the enemy that shoots them down. and an engaged enemy is a distracted enemy, so there is very little chance that they will see you coming, and as a result, will do little to evade any sort of fire you put their way. Bombers are your next prey of choice. Because of their slow speed and low agility, they are perfect targets for a high-octane speed demon such as yourself. The best option you have is to speed out to them before they reach their targets and begin a strafe. At that point, you will have left them with very limited options, consisting of, firstly, simply ignoring your high damage output and pushing for their target. 2, they can try and dogfight with you, and you are something that can easily control the pace of the battle, outrun them, or chase them down, because of course the only other option they have is to run away, which isn't a good option, considering again, you will easily outpace them. Those last two options result in the bomber being out of the fight and not doing their main job of destroying objectives, which is a great thing, because that's what bombers are supposed to do. If you can keep them from doing their main job, you are being an extraordinary help to your team. Of course, they don't have to run away, and they don't have to dogfight with you, in which case they'll just keep pushing towards their targets. And at that point, they become the first kind of target we discussed, a distracted target. But, of course, if they're distracted, you'll easily take them out. If they're already attacking your objectives, though, I will have to say, the thrust engine isn't really the best option for you. You're much better off running a stock interceptor or fighter at that point, because you don't need to travel very fast, and therefore go very far, to reach right outside your front door. And finally, the last type of target that you specialize in blowing apart are overextended or impatient enemies. An enemy without support is going to find that you will rip them apart in very short order. Because you can have max powered weapons and have your speed still remain high even on default engine power, you can attack, destroy a target, and retreat before the enemy team can react to what you just did. But if the enemy realizes what you are doing, they might try to prioritize you, because, let's be frank and honest with ourselves, no one likes getting killed over and over and over again by the same person doing pretty much the same thing over and over and over again. So they might start hyper-focusing on you when they see you, which then lets you easily drag them towards your team for a simple takedown, or you can lead them into your frigates and capital ships' bubbles of defensive fire, which will get rid of them in very short order, even quicker than if a teammate was shooting at them. And if they realize that they are overextending and turn tail or run, you can simply close in on their 6 o'clock and put them out of their misery. Now time for some closing points. Firstly, what ships is this engine actually useful on? Well, fighters and interceptors get great benefits from it, as the base speeds these two classes have already gives them more from the 30% bonus that the thrust engine provides. But I don't really recommend using this engine on the two newest ships introduced into Squadrons, the TIE Defender or the B-Wing. And let's start with why you really shouldn't equip it on the TIE Defender. The Defender is a devastating close-range brawling fighter with high shields, as high as a Y-Wing in some cases, high maneuverability, and extraordinarily heavy forward-facing firepower, but it's not good at sustained pursuit duty, and instead finds its sweet spot doing what its name implies, defending objectives. With the thrust engine equipped, the speed of the TIE Defender only goes up to 169, which is still slower than a base TIE Interceptor, and only 19 more than a base TIE Fighter, and both of these ships, the TIE Fighter and the Interceptor, have power shunting to help them fill boost, and the fighter even gets the extra added bonus benefit of the boost extension kit to further its hit and run prowess. Though I will say the Defender does have the added benefit of having the highest boost speed in the game at 274, but that's only 5 more than a TIE Interceptor, and the Defender also has the smallest boost tank in the game to compensate, only lasting a couple of seconds at most. Which is why I mentioned that it's not good at sustained pursuit duty. That high boost speed does let you chase down fighters away from objectives, but because the boost tank is so small, you're not going to be chasing them across the map. And what about the New Republic's B-Wing? No. I personally would just say don't even bother with the thrust engine on the B-Wing. Because the B-Wing with the thrust engine will only go 130 forwards, and that's only as fast as a support ship. and its F-tier maneuverability becomes by far the worst in the entire game, except for some meme combinations on fighters. And really, using the thrust engine isn't giving you that great of a benefit for what it's worth, because the B-Wing actually has the largest boost tank in the game, so if you want speed, the boost will do you just fine. And to give some greater context as to how horrible the maneuverability gets, a Y-Wing with the reinforced hull is almost 17 points better at maneuvering than the B-Wing with the thrust engine, and even if the B-Wing has the stock engine, the Y-Wing is still 1.5 maneuverability points better. Bottom line, really, just don't use the thrust engine on the B-Wing, it's not worth it. And what actually counters you in battle? It's an interesting question to bring up as the last one I posed in this video. Well, the only thing that even has a slight chance of getting a fair fight is another thrust engine ship that decides to give chase. But even then, the enemy pilot will have to be very good to catch up, because if they use too much engine power to chase you down, they won't have enough weapon energy to actually take you down. Unless you throw your advantage completely out the window and turn to engage them, in which case I wish you the best of luck fighting in a fair fight. But I will warn you right now, in Squadrons, fair fights are for suckers. And on that bombshell, I will go ahead and wrap this video up. I do have some more videos planned on Squadrons, but as I am still recovering from a COVID infection, although I'm mostly over it now, so you don't need to worry about anything, and of course my internet is being a little bit spotty, but I do have a solution on the way for that. I don't have a set date on when these videos will be released, but do know that I'm going to be trying my best to get some more Squadrons content out for all of you lovely people. This is Doc from 4FS Gaming. I hope you're all staying safe out there, and I will see you all next time.
Congratulations, Vanguard. The Imperial forces have been defeated.